And if I can say in one word, which took me 250 pages to explicate, part of the message of moving from synagogue center to synagogue community is to move away from our obsession around membership. How big is your synagogue? How many people are paying dues? To having a commitment to ownership. Don't ask the membership question, okay? Ask the ownership question. How many Jews own what's happening here, and how do you make them into owners? How do you make them into owners? If you look at the United Synagogue study that came out 6 months ago, interesting that they're suggesting, I hear it's controversial, I think, Mark, you can probably tell me more about this, okay? Because I hear the rumblings, okay? The attempt of that study is to say, let's stop talking just about synagogues and talk about kihilot, okay? I think it's the same notion. I mean, those of us, the small number of us that have been doing synagogue change work for the past 15, 20 years, okay, know this to be true, but getting that into the consciousness of the Balabatim who run the American synagogues is a whole other kettle of fish. But this notion that let's talk about community and ownership and not about membership, because the post-tribal generation are, as we know, not joiners. If they're not joiners, we need to change the business model. Fourth and finally, in an age when we better understand the shortcomings of capitalism and the culture of consumerism, the Jewish community must offer a glimpse of Kedusha, experiences that provide transcendent meaning and a sense of purpose. So here's my biggest gripe with the Jewish world and those who are the stewards of it. I hear every place I go that, the problem in Jewish life is that it's too expensive and it takes too much time. Hogwash. The fact of the matter is that Jews spend enormous amounts of money and will give enormous amounts of time to places that will feed and nourish their spiritual sense of self. The evidence is everywhere. Jews are among the most avid spiritual seekers in America. Look at a book written by Tony Schwarz called What Really Matters? Searching for Wisdom in America. Tony Schwarz used to write for the New York Times, visited about a dozen spiritual retreat centers in America. And he notes in a footnote, now Schwarz I assume is Jewish, I don't know him personally, but give him, he's not a relative either. There's no T in my name, okay? He notes in a footnote in the book, like in chapter 9 or 10, he says, yet again, most of the people here are Jewish. These are not Jewish retreat centers, by the way, okay? Because Jews are hungry for places that will feed their soul, and they're not finding it in synagogues. So instead of us asking the question about why did those Jews betray the Jewish world and not join the synagogue or leave the synagogue, the question we have to ask ourselves, why are we still talking about the Torah we know as opposed to thinking about the Torah Jews want? And if you look at things like the Institute for Jewish Spirituality, again, Rachel has provided wonderful leadership there. Think about the number of, and there's several staff people from IJS here, the number of rabbis that have been trained at IJS, rabbis who really are understanding that there's another way to approach the rabbinate, to deepen what they experience at IJS and bring it back to the synagogues is an important thing to note. Look at the success of places like Elat Chaim in Connecticut or Chachmat Halev in the Bay Area, and the interest in going to those kind of spiritual retreat centers. We need to mainstream this phenomenon and not keep it on the fringes. So in conclusion, the tribal Jews who are the stewards of the Jewish community need to start paying attention to the covenantal Jews who are their children. The Torah we know and the community we built is not what younger Jews want. Who are the Jews we're trying to program for and we're trying to engage? They're Jews who are seekers. The Jews who want a Torah, a new Torah, of a newly imagined Jewish community. They are Dorshei Chachma, seekers of wisdom, Dorshei Tzedek, seekers of social justice, Dorshei Kihila, Jews who want true community, Dorshei Kedusha, Jews who really want a sense of the holy. Either the Jewish community will fill those needs, or Jews will go elsewhere. It requires a vision to understand the new reality, and the courage to reimagine a Jewish community that can not only survive, but perhaps bring about a renaissance of Jewish life that will make us a role model for other faith communities in America. Thank you. So I'd love to get some feedback on the propositions, your own experience. I'm more interested in where you disagree than we agree, but I'll take all comers. Please.
yes, yes, and yes.
Could you identify yourself,
Yeah,
just
sure.
for my benefit and others as well?
Rachel Gervitz.
Thank you.
Rabbi in Bridgeport, Connecticut. So yes, yes, and yes, everything, I was nodding all the way through. And personal experiences and work that I'm doing very much plugs into the model that you're talking about. One of the things I've been starting to think about is somebody who's working as a congregational rabbi, still kind of is committed to that being the hub, but wanting to set myself up very much with what you described and thinking about what that might look like down the line, is that we know what it looks like now. I think what you described in terms of what it should be looking like or where we should be heading, I'm really completely with you. I agree with everything. What I'm trying to now pay attention to and where the uncertainty is what's the line? What are the factors along the line that joins us from there to there? So whether it be in terms of the process of transforming the financial model, for example, of the congregation, the process which I assume Lisa and Diana will address later this afternoon, of transforming the skill set of rabbis to get from where we are to where we want to be going. But what are some of the key factors, if we were thinking of this in terms of strategic planning, strategic management, how do you describe the line that joins these two places?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, and that, Dafka, is worth a commission, because it's not just one person answering on a podium in 3 minutes, but it needs a lot of good heads, because a lot of it has to do with the business model of the American synagogue. And the American synagogue is still the primary retail outlet of American Judaism, where Jews get Judaism, and they go there less and less, unfortunately. I'm right now involved with a project called the Jewish Journey Project here in Manhattan. We've got 6 congregations and 2 JCCs reinventing what afternoon religious school ed will look like. I can tell you now that we're 6 months into it, that the educational program and product we put out will be light years better than anything that's been out there in the past. But the program still may not succeed because what we need to do in the next 3 months is convince 6 synagogue boards to change their business model. And we'll even if we raise a boatload of money, which we're planning to do, and we're already well on the way to do that, which will essentially mitigate the financial setback of the synagogues in the first couple of years, anyone who's good with a pencil, okay, and looks at the numbers, will understand that if the Jewish Journey Project is successful, within 5 years, the synagogue will have to defund their religious schools and go to a much more collaborative model that looks way different than what they do. And it also means pushing synagogues away from the current membership model, because I believe that's not the model that will succeed into the next generation. Now, how we do all that and how we pull off these conversations is really challenging. I'm right in the midst of it right now. And I have to say that in my years of consulting to synagogues, the area that I've been least successful is when people who are savvy around business matters and budgets ask me the question about it. I'll throw out a line which I always regret, but I believe it. When I say your current business model won't work into the next generation, they'll say, okay, so what does it look like? Which is what your question is, Rachel, right? And I don't have a great answer yet. I really don't. I'll give you one piece of anecdote. In Washington, 3 major Jewish philanthropists bought what is now the 6th and I Synagogue. It was once a synagogue. It became a church. The church moved out and built a mega church in the suburbs. It was up for sale. It was going to become a bar. And a few philanthropists bought it and created this institution. Now, if you get their material, if you go there, it is a very exciting hub of Jewish life, attracting a lot of young people who are urban America, all Generation X and Yers. Not quite millennials yet, because they're only 12 years old. But it's Generation X and Y for sure. However, the dirty little secret of 6 and I is that they have not made it sustainable. It's all happening because the philanthropists behind it are essentially subsidizing it 100%. So there's no one asking for any money. So I can celebrate what's going on there, but okay, will they pay for it? We need to get the answer to that question. Will they pay for it? I'd like to believe that if the Jewish community, the Jewish world puts out programs and institutional models of quality that Jews will pay for,